Welcome everyone. Today again we are going to discuss 25 important questions. Several questions we have in the list, but these 25 questions I consider them best, and hence I have given them the title Best 25. These questions are some of the rare questions, and if you look at previous exams, these are frequently asked by UGC-NET for different exams. Either it is for UGC-TET and others, and several state exam questions are also having them in their pattern. And instead of wasting our time, let's move to our 25 questions. And here we are having it in the list with the title Best 25 Question. And this is by me. And let's begin the process. And the first in the list is the question that we have is, which Irish writer explored Irish history and culture in the novel The Wild Irish Girl 1806? And this novel is having the subtitle A National Tale. And answer is Sidney Owenson. This Irish history is frequently asked for different exam, and hence geographical location or due to geographical reason, this question becomes very important for us, and hence it is here. Second question is Hannah and Sarah, more associated with blank kind of fiction. These are two important name or writer, and we can say these are for children's fiction. Charles Darwin's work Origin of the Species was written in the year 1859. Victorian age was during the motion, and sometime if we see direct question from big writers is not asked. Sometime on that movement of different, either it is Oxford, Tractarian, or the writers, Imagist, and others. And this book is a kind of hint that Origin of Species is important work for UGC in few last years, 5 to 10 years, and 2 to 3 times in different ways. Question is asked. Sometime the term survival of the fittest is from which text, and it is again from Origin of Species, Charles Darwin, and so on. Sometime Charles Darwin is quoted by so and so poet. So there is a kind of attraction toward Charles Darwin in UGC-NET. The next question we are having is name of the sequel King Solomon Mines 1885 by Rider Haggard, and the title or the sequel, its sequel is Sheba and the Golden Mines. Next in the list is having Ford Madoc Folk collaborated with which novelist in writing novels like The Inheritors and Romance? And very answer is Herman Hesse. This novelist, writer, author is most important. While reading modern era, I urge you all to move to Herman Hesse and look at his writing and how and what theme of his writing style are. Next in the list is which First World War poet write in his diaries that he was shocked to hear the stories of women enjoying the tales of violence inflicted on the German soldiers? And answer is Wilfred Owen. Wilfred Owen, as we know, is a war poet, and several of his war poetry you have seen in different classes or courses of literature. And this make this poet important, and this poet several poems are important, but only a few asked from war poetry. But this question could be important. And next in the list is James Joyce wrote 3 stories, The Sisters, Evelyn, and After the Race, under the pseudonym. And answer is Molly. So pseudonym is not a real name, but poet's name under which he wrote. For example, if we look at Munshi Premchand, then he is not having the same name when he is writing Urdu poetry. And this way, several writers having different name. Even if you go with the Bronte sisters, they are writing with different name, Culver, Amber, and so on. So this way they are not having their real name, but writing under a different name, and hence this is important. The character of Catherine Helbre in Virginia Woolf Night and Day is loosely based on Violet Dickinson. This in question is important, and several times this Nights and Day is asked in UGC-NET, and other essays of Virginia Woolf are also important. If you are reading Virginia Woolf's essay, whatever it be, then remember how many characters are there in which, whether it is journey in a train or a loosely talk among two characters and so on. So you have to remember everything, especially Virginia Woolf's essays. Although you have to check her novels also. So novels years are even more important, but more focus should remain on essays by Virginia Woolf or other book that are not novel, because everyone focus more on her novels and forget these essays and other non-fictional work, and UGC mostly focus more on these type of question because they know what students are missing, and they pick that one. And this question remains important if we are going to check our perspective on that. Next question is, who was brave or foolhardy enough to edit Finnegan Wake down into a shorter edition? And answer is Ellen de Botton. Total's Miscellany contain the song and sonnets of, answer is Ralph, Wyatt and Raleigh. The importance of this Total's Miscellany is that you have to remember how many poems it has, how many poems are of Raleigh and how many poems are of Wyatt. And if you go in this way, then it make you more eligible enough to score great numbers, and do also think how many songs and sonnets were in that, and this way you could fetch more marks. Next question in the list is, John Dryden is called father of English criticism, and who called him? Answer is Alexander Pope. Dryden and Pope were nearly, once the age of Dryden ends, it starts with Alexander Pope, or you could say if 17th century ends with Dryden, and it begins 18th century with Alexander Pope, and both writers, both poets are having their goodness or badness, and you can go through their works to get more details about it. Whom does Arnold call the pseudo Shelley? Shelley means P.D. Shelley of Romantic era, and answer is D.C. Rossetti. This D.C. Rossetti is important. You have to check the movement by the poet, and who were the brother and sister, and their works, their contribution, their paintings, and their works, if any. If you check those systematic pattern, then it remains very important. As we say, as I say earlier, that Victorian era is not focusing on those questions which are more important, or on the more major poets, that rather they getting poets from unknown recognition like Rossetti, or some important person like Charles Darwin. So they are taking their works and their name, and in this way they are checking those names which we left, because we focus more on important name, either it is poet laureate Alfred Tennyson, or important writer like Robert Browning, or P.D. Shelley, or Charles Dickens, and so on. But we ignore these minor work writers or authors, and hence we suffer the marking system. Next in the list is Critus in Essay on the Dramatic Poesy stand for Dryden's brother-in-law. And the name of the brother-in-law is Robert Howard. And there are several debates in the Essay on Dramatic Poesy. You have to see who stands for whom. Like if character A is there, whom he represents, and who was Dryden among all. And if you remember this, then you can get more marks. And even Essay on Dramatic Poesy is also important, in which year this work was written or published, and hence you can also check the relation of all the characters that are debating in Essay on Dramatic Poesy. And this way, this question is important, as you can get several details from it, or there are various branches that are coming out of it. If you follow them, then it would be good. Next in the list is who say that the poetry lifts the veil from the hidden beauty of the world and makes familiar objects as if they were not familiar. Answer is Shelley, P.B. Shelley. Sometime question is asked full name of P.B. Shelley, and students commit mistake. They do not know their full name. It is Percy Bysshe Shelley, and you have to remember it. There are several names which are important, like W.B. Yeats or T.S. Eliot, their full name, because students are not focusing on their full name, and once they come, they disturb and say that they committed a blunder. Instead of that, do remember them point by point. Next question in the list is who coined the term new criticism? New criticism is the most important part of literature, and several questions are coming. At least 5 questions are expected from criticism. And new criticism or modern criticism, structuralism, post-structuralism, or others. But here in case of new criticism, we are having T.E. Hulme. Next question is which poem by Chaucer is influenced by Botticelli? And answer is House of Fame. House of Fame is also important, and you can check the influence of Chaucer of different country, because Chaucer time is divided into 3 periods: France, and influence of England, and so on. So these you have to cover. In which year he was there, which book of him is dedicated to whom, how many characters are there in Chaucer's different tales, and how many stories are there in of pilgrims. And in that way you can check several other aspects of the poem, because the question does not mean the question only, because there are several things which are associated with them, and you have to look there, like the House of Fame is published in which year. Next question we are having is who wrote poem expressing his love for Penelope Devereux? And answer is Philip Sidney, and the poem is Astrophil and Stella. Astrophil means star, a star lover. Stella means star. Astrophil, star lover, something like that. And Penelope Devereux, whom Sidney loved but could not express his love, and he died. And later on, this work is found by some of his friends and later on published. And this way, love remained incomplete. He did not even express. So you can check this Astrophil and Stella, which year published, how many poems it has, the opening line of the poem, ending line of the poem. These make it more important, and how many structure it has, sonnet and songs and sonnets it has. Sonnet number is more important. How many parts it is divided, that is also more important. And now let's move to another next question. Woolf is a poet of blank period, that is Old English. Sometimes it remains a mistake, like Old English or Modern English or Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-Norman. In that sense, you have to remember or divide a structure. Which poet belonged to Anglo-Saxon, which to Anglo-Norman, and then the age of Chaucer, then we are having reform, new Renaissance or Renaissance, and then Shakespearean era, Elizabethan, or we can say Elizabethan era, and so on. So there must be a structure of poet, and Woolf is Old English poet. Next, world literature is a term introduced by, and answer is Hegel. So easy question, no need to go detail in it. Tin Drum and Cat and Mouse are novels written by Gunter Grass. This Gunter Grass is most important because during that after World War II, the novels of him remains important. Several of his novels are adapted into movie, and Tin Drum is one among them. It is more like a gothic novel where the growth of hero stops. He was a child and remained child until he is having his drum with him. But once he broke his drum, then his age started to grow. It is more like a curious case of Benjamin Button, or you can also compare the Gothic structure with that novel picture of Dorian Gray. So these novels can be compared with that Gothic novels because their structure is very different. As we go with this curious case of Benjamin Button. Benjamin Button born not as a child but as old man. Because if child are born, they cry, but he was having cough like so that was Benjamin Button, the famous short story written by Scott H. Fitzgerald. Scott Fitzgerald, American writer, and his famous novel is The Great Gatsby. In that sense, you can compare different novels in different way, and these are the things that we are having here. Next question in the list is T.S. Eliot appreciates Jacobean dramatist and blank poet stand for direct spontaneous apprehension of thought, and answer is neoclassical poet. Neoclassical poets are also called neoclassical age of poet are also called Augustan era or 18th century poet, or the Popist poet, means the poets who are followers of Pope Alexander Pope, because their time is from 1711 to till the death of Alexander Pope, and hence most of these writers are called neoclassical writer. Neo means new, classical means class, because these writers are following the classical theme but with the new variation. And example is Rape of the Lock of Alexander Pope. Here he is having epic structure but presenting it in a mock way, and hence mock epic, and this is why new classical era or age. Next question, which critic thinks that Paradise Lost lacked human interest? Answer is Lamb. It is his view, and we are aware about Paradise Lost 12 books, and first and second book are The Heroic Tale of Saturn, and 9 book is more like Banishment of Adam and Eve and others, and Pandemonium is also built at the end of book 1. Who built Pandemonium is a question you have to check, and who were the first fallen angel and so on, who was the first follower of Saturn in that sense, like just to justify the way of God. And even if you go with this very opening of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree whose mortal taste brought death into the world, and all our woe with the loss of Eden plea greater when restore us, regain the blissful seat, is a kind of thing. And the 25th line is perhaps to justify the ways of God to men. In that sense, you have to remember these lines. And another most important line is I am not with the onion mount, not with the middle flight. And another important thing that you have to remember, that poem is having 5 speeches of Saturn, that is book 1, and that define the heroic trail of Saturn, and hence that is thing that make Paradise Lost important, at least for UGC perspective, although I urge all to read at least book 1 of that by your The next question that we are having is which Scottish writers map Scotland's history and culture in the novel The Scottish Chief? And answer is Jane Porter, which is just common information, so not deep knowledge about it. Next, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Hyde is a novel that deals with the multiple personality written by R.L. Stevenson. R.L. Stevenson is the most important writer, and several questions asked from this writer, and not only from Jekyll and Hyde, and you have to check how many novels this person has written and the years and the main characters of there. If you could check, then at least you could get at least 2 marks extra, because it is expected that one question could come from him in one way or other. And even if you look at R.L. Stevenson, several of his novels are adapted into movie, and hence this writer is not only of that era but also in current era, is a popular one for the movie writers, producer, directors, and even for actors. And the last question that we are having here is the 3 parts of the novel To the Lighthouse are The Window, Lighthouse, and oh, sorry. The question is given in row, but yeah, you can check it again. Check it by yourself. 3 parts of To the Lighthouse, and with this you can check several other things. And yeah, novel is important. In which year the novel was written, and what was the ending? Who was the first person reached at the lighthouse, and who was the first person left? Who was which brother of the character died in the World War, and so on. And in this way, these are some 25 questions, and I consider them the best 25 questions. And these questions are not the best only, but are the hint that which way you have to prepare. If some question is given, does not mean that is the only question, because each question is having different branch. And if you go in this way, then it would make easy for many students to crack UGC-NET, not only UGC-NET, but different exam of different college, university, or even entrance exam. And if you are going in this way, then it would be very wonderful for all. And this is enough for today. If you like the video, you can subscribe to us. And with this, thank you. Take care. Goodbye.